was leaving a message in the park. A second KGB officer would remove the mark and head to the park
11
to
o'clock.
collect the message.
The KGB is far more adept, it's far more cunning in some ways. It's far better at putting agents inside Britain. Britain doesn't have any agents inside the KGB. It's not able to listen to their communications in the same way, so it's effectively blind and deaf against its enemy, and that's a real disadvantage.
By the 1950s, Kim Philby comes under suspicion. Questions are even asked in the Houses of Parliament about his loyalty. He holds a press conference in which he publicly denies being a traitor.
It was a very capable performance by one of the great liars in British intelligence.
Philby protests his innocence for another 10 years. But by 1965, the weight of evidence against him is too great, and he finally flees to the Soviet Union. Instead of receiving the hero's welcome he expects for all his hard years of service to the KGB, he is met with suspicion.
Stalin actually thought that they probably might not be what they seemed. He actually thought that the Cambridge spies were so good they couldn't be true.
In Moscow, Philby finds himself under virtual house arrest. The KGB won't employ him. The disappointment is too much, and he turns to drink. In 1988, he dies a broken man.
Philby's betrayal is an enormous blow to MI6's relationship with the United States, because Philby had enjoyed such an important position as the MI6 liaison with the CIA, with Washington, that suddenly America becomes distrustful of MI6. It thinks to itself, hang on a sec, how many more traitors might there be? Should we be sharing as much information with MI6 as we were in the past? Are these guys really as good as we thought they were?
The British government cover up the entire Philby fiasco. As far as the public are concerned, MI6 and its spies are still the brilliantly heroic characters of the James Bond stories. Tuxedoed men armed with guns and clever gadgets. The glamorous exploits might be fictional, but the spy gadgets are a reality.
MI6 has a whole department that's dedicated to producing ingenious gadgets, and in many cases, for example, I was given a briefcase that if I flicked the switches one way, it would turn on a concealed recorder.
But the ingenuity of MI6 is nothing compared to the deadly gadgets of the KGB. On the 7th of September 1978, London witnesses the use of a lethal device in a plot that is stranger than fiction.
Georgy Markov was an ambitious writer in Bulgaria who became dissatisfied with the Bulgarian regime, and despite having been at its topmost level, he went hunting with the communist dictator Todor Zhivkov, but defected and came to London.
Markov was riling the communist leadership in Bulgaria with his deeply critical writings and broadcasts.
For the Bulgarian regime, Georgy Markov was probably their number one public enemy.
It's just another routine day for Markov as he makes his way to work across Waterloo Bridge in London. But within a few hours, he begins to feel unwell. The following day, he is admitted to hospital suffering massive organ failure. His doctors have no explanation. Markov, though, is certain he has been poisoned.
I went in and saw him, and his words, they're out to get me. I've been poisoned by the KGB. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to die.
Dr. Riley is chief medical officer on corps at the time. His colleagues think Markov is paranoid and crazy. Only Dr. Riley believes his fantastic claims.
He just was so convincing, and he seemed so genuine that I thought I'd better take this seriously.
Markov desperately tries to work out how he's been poisoned. The only strange thing he can remember happening is at a bus stop on the way to work that morning.
He just told me about how he was waiting at a bus stop at the south end of Waterloo Bridge, And he said that he suddenly felt like a sharp stabbing feeling in the back of his right thigh. And he turned around to see someone there who'd accidentally prodded him with an umbrella.
Markov's condition deteriorates quickly, and within 3 days he is dead. For the first time, MI6 fear the worst. Has a foreign agent carried out an assassination on British soil? Has someone been given a real-life license to kill?
Everything you're doing overseas as an operative is illegal because espionage is illegal. So the concept of having a license to kill is irrelevant. If you kill somebody, you can't suddenly pull out a license and that's going to be fine. So the reality is there's no need to have a license to kill.
License or not, Markov believes he's been targeted. And whoever has attacked him has left a trace.
When I examined him and found on the back of his thigh sort of this puncture wound, I thought, well, perhaps he has been poisoned.
Buried inside Markov's leg, the pathologist discovers a tiny round pellet the size of a pinhead. The microscopic holes drilled into it are so small that there's only one toxin powerful enough to have killed in such a minuscule dose. Ricin.
You can imagine this is the pellet. The theory is that the holes were sealed with something like gelatin, which would melt at body temperature. So that once the pellet is beneath the skin, the gelatin dissolves and the toxin leaks out.
The pellet was fired into Markov's leg by an elaborate mechanism, most probably hidden inside the umbrella he saw dropped at the bus stop.
You need a lot of knowledge, a lot of skill, and a lot of expertise to engineer something like the pellet containing the ricin that killed Mr. Markov.
MI6 believe the sophisticated nature of the pellet and umbrella device point to a state-ordered assassination. Probably the work of the Bulgarian Secret Service, with help from the KGB.
Our own secret intelligence service must have been extremely embarrassed as well as concerned that this sort of attack had been carried out on Waterloo Bridge in broad daylight in the centre of London. It was an incredible affront.
The Markov murder hits the headlines, and suddenly MI6 finds its business splashed across the newspapers. Its secrets are being laid bare in full public view. By the late 1970s, it seems Britain's Secret Service isn't very secret anymore.
It was an open secret where the offices of MI6 were based at Century House, just over the river in Lambeth. I mean, it was supposed to be secret. There was no plaque outside saying MI6, but all the bus conductors in Lambeth would used to say, "Spies alight here, spies get off the bus here," as a joke, because everyone knew where MI6 was based.
After the disasters of the early Cold War, MI6's luck finally changes. They persuade senior KGB member Oleg Gordievsky to turn double agent and leak Russian secrets to the British.
I wanted to fight against the anti-human, brutal communist regime. So I decided to work as an agent of the British intelligence service.
Gordievsky quickly climbs the KGB career ladder, and in 1982 he's posted to a prime position at the Soviet embassy in London.
Oleg Gordievsky was recruited by the British at an important moment when Britain and America did not have many spies who could reveal the inner thoughts and the workings of the KGB leadership and of the leadership of the Soviet Union as a whole.
The MI6 officer in charge of handling Gordievsky is none other than John Scott.
He was turned into a really reliable and effective and committed agent, if you like, or double agent. What you can only do is if you trust the double agent concerned, and by definition, trusting double agents is not a straightforward business.
But the British become convinced that Gordievsky is genuine. During his lunch breaks, he slips out of the Soviet embassy to meet with Scarlett. Very occasionally, he's also able to smuggle out top secret documents.
It was very dangerous And only 5-6 times I was able to take documents into this pocket and take it for 1 hour only to show it to the British.
Gordievsky is risking his life meeting Stalin. If the KGB catch a traitor, there is no reprieve. They will execute him.
And the British journalists photographed my documents, gave them back to me, and I drove back like mad to the embassy to return the documents. I was playing with death every day.
Gordievsky's most important moment is to come in late 1983. Unknown to the public, for a brief moment, the world is on the brink of nuclear war.
Tension was increasing between the West and the Soviet Union when Ronald Reagan was talking about the evil empire and when the Soviet Union feared that there could be a surprise attack.
NATO forces are preparing for a Europe-wide exercise that simulates a nuclear attack. Everyone from the Joint Chiefs of Staff to the President is to be involved. But the Soviet Union thinks the exercise is merely cover for the West to launch a real strike against them. The world is unwittingly heading towards nuclear war.
Messages went out to the KGB station saying, you must be on high alert for the possibility of the West launching a strike against us. And the Soviet Union actually raised its state of alert and readiness.
In London, Gordievsky sees the aggressive messages from the Russian leadership and immediately warns MI6.
And that information passed on to the British and the American intelligence officers. The Americans took it very seriously.
To pacify Moscow, the US immediately scaled down the exercise and removed any involvement by the president. Though free to return to his Moscow home, Gordievsky knows his days are numbered. He is closely watched at every turn. In desperation, he asks MI6 to smuggle him out of the country. His request goes straight to number 10 Downing Street, where Prime Minister Margaret